For our third lecture on the Milky Way, I want to talk about the satellites of our galaxy. Our galaxy has a variety of other small galaxies that orbit around it, and these are the satellite galaxies of the Milky Way. And so this is not all of them here. There's actually, quite a few of them. Some are very small. Some are not much bigger than large globular clusters. Some are debated. They've been discovered by some astronomers, but hard to find by others, and so forth. So some of them seem to be very rich in stars. Some seem to have almost no stars in them. So the actual number of satellite galaxies depends on who you ask. As I said, depends on who you ask. So there's, pretty much most people agree at least there's a dozen or so, but some people say maybe 2 dozen. So we can sort of say there's between 15 and 30 satellite galaxies. Most are small, most are dwarf ellipticals. Some of them, some of them, they actually argue whether they're large globular clusters or small satellite galaxies. These make up the extended halo or the corona of our galaxy, along with the dark matter that's out there. 2 of the most prominent ones that get the most attention are the Magellanic Clouds. We've mentioned them before. Even though they were known well before Magellan made them famous to Europeans. The Large Magellanic Cloud is the larger one, well, duh. It's about 50,000 parsecs away. It's 160,000 light years. That's 50,000 parsecs. It's actually pretty big. As far as galaxies go, it is not that bad. It's about 1/10 the mass of the Milky Way. Milky Way is a pretty decent-sized galaxy, so 1/10 of it is a decent-sized galaxy of its own. So it probably would be a nice little galaxy were it not for the Milky Way here. The Milky Way's gravity is actually distorting it, keeping it from being a nice shaped galaxy. It has a bar across the middle. It has like remnants of spiral arms, but it's not really all that spirally. Probably it would be an SBA galaxy if the Milky Way were not here with its gravity tearing it up. So it's really an irregular galaxy, called irregular 1 because it has structure to it. Sometimes because it's trying really, really hard to be an SBA, they classify as an SBA parentheses P for peculiar, meaning it's not behaving right. The small Magellanic Cloud just looks like someone sneezed on the picture. Okay, and so it's definitely a regular galaxy, a regular 2. The stars and gas tend to line up in a bar, but it doesn't have structure much more than it's kind of an oblong sort of shape. It's about 61,000 parsecs away. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit farther away. Large Magellanic Cloud. The 2 of them are very close together, the gravitational interacting, and they're passing by the Milky Way. And as they are, they have this long tail behind them of dust and gas that's been pulled out of the 2 galaxies. And so what's pulling that out? Well, as it passes through the corona of our galaxy, there's mass out there, dark matter, other sort of things, and the gravity of passing through all that is pulling out this tail most likely. Well, we do know that because these small galaxies are passing through all this dark matter, they're kind of being slowed down and they spiral inwards. So big galaxies tend to eat small galaxies. So here we have M51, which is a galaxy that has a little small companion that's spiraling into it, so it's eating it. There are indications that the Milky Way has eaten other galaxies because we see clumps of stars moving in the Milky Way separate from the rest of the galaxy. Clumps of stars that all have similar metallicity, similar chemistry, and similar ages, but they're not moving with everything else. So that suggests maybe they're remnants of something smaller galaxy that our own Milky Way has eaten. In fact, they call this galactic cannibalism, and once it's eaten, that's called digestion, galactic digestion, in which it pulls these stars and everything apart. I thought that's kind of a cool thing. The zone of avoidance, you can't see anything because our own galaxy blocks the view, but lined up with our galaxy. So we got our galaxy right here, so we can't see anything because our galaxy is in the way. But right out here along the plane, our view is blocked by the interstellar medium. Radio telescopes discovered back in the 1970s a little satellite galaxy that's out there. And since it's right behind the Milky Way, they named it Snickers. Okay, so it's one of these little satellite galaxies that some people say is there, some people say it's not there. So I like to count it because I like to think about Snickers behind the Milky Way. And so anyway, but that's just kind of a little cool thing there. Okay. Another interesting satellite galaxy was discovered by undergraduate students doing a research project in the summer. So these were undergraduates, and they were doing a research project, and the professor overseeing it said that they wanted them to look at a whole bunch of stars near the core of the galaxy and measure the proper motions. And so what they did was they started measuring, and they realized a whole clump of these things was all moving together. And that was actually a little satellite galaxy that's orbiting around our galaxy and just happened to be passing past on the far side of the bulge of the galaxy right there. So it's in the general direction of Sagittarius, and in typical astronomy fashion, we call this the Sagittarius dwarf. Now, this is another interesting thing. Snickers was discovered with radio telescope. Radio telescopes have also discovered a variety of other clouds of gas that are out there. And these clouds of gas are orbiting around our galaxy. And these clouds of gas orbiting around our galaxy have either little or no metals in them at all. They're almost all hydrogen and helium. They have about the same mass as a satellite galaxy, but they don't have stars in them. And so they appear to be passing through the corona and so forth, slowing down, so they're eventually going to run into our galaxy and add extra interstellar medium, extra hydrogen and helium. But the possibility is that these are actually like satellite galaxies that for some reason never started forming stars, because they have enough mass in them that if that gas started forming stars, it would look like a satellite galaxy. And so since they move around high speed outside the rest of the galaxy, we call them high velocity clouds. And it's kind of an interesting idea. Is this what a galaxy would look like if for some reason stars never started forming? Which raises another question. What causes stars to start forming in a galaxy? That's actually beyond the level of this class to answer that. But it is an intriguing sort of extension to what we're studying. So these accreting low metallicity, high velocity clouds are indeed possibly suggestive that they're still accreting in the Milky Way. The satellite galaxies are probably these clouds like this that started forming stars, and they're accreting in the Milky Way too. This suggests that our Milky Way is not done forming, that whatever event started galaxies at the beginning of the universe had all this stuff coming together, and we're living in the galaxy as it's still in the process of forming, still as all this stuff is spiraling into it. And so our galaxy is still growing. And I thought this was another cool thing. About a dozen years ago, they discovered outside the galaxy kind of a very, very thin, high energy, very hot, ionized ring of gas around our galaxy. It doesn't really show up in pictures or so forth, but it shows up with the right instrumentation that this is there. And so they started talking about this zone of high energy gas surrounding the rest of the galaxy. Okay, now if you remember, before we went to spring break, you had to have a Star Trek reference now and then. As soon as I read about this in a journal, my first thought went all the way back to the very first Star Trek episode that was ever broadcast. And that was when the Enterprise went to the edge of the galaxy and found a ring of high energy stuff surrounding the galaxy. When they flew into it, it transformed a couple of the crew members into super beings that tried to kill the rest of the crew. So, anyway, Star Trek reference here. Okay, so